I stood at Peter's grave and whispered, "I am so sorry." The wind was cold, and I felt empty inside. "My name is Emma, and I am 38 years old. This is the story of how I destroyed everything because I didn't trust the man I loved. 8 years ago, I married Peter. He was 31 and I was 28. It was the happiest day of my life. He looked so handsome in his black suit, and I wore a white dress. We said our vows in front of our families and friends. We promised to love each other forever. Peter was a good man. He worked as an engineer, and I worked as a teacher. We lived in a small house with a garden. Every morning he made coffee for me and kissed me goodbye. Every evening we had dinner together and talked about our day. On weekends, we went to the park or watched movies at home. We laughed a lot, and we never fought. I thought we were perfect together. I thought nothing could break us. But I was wrong. Everything started to change about 6 months ago. Peter began coming home late. At first, it was once a week. He said, "I had extra work at the office." I believed him because he never lied to me before. But then it became twice a week, then 3 times a week. Sometimes he came home at midnight, and I was already asleep. When I asked him, "Why are you so late?" he said, "The project is very demanding right now." I wanted to believe him, but something felt wrong. He also stopped answering his phone. I would call him during the day, and he wouldn't pick up. When he finally called back, he said, "Sorry, I was in a meeting." At dinner, he was quiet and distracted. He looked at his phone a lot. When I asked, "Is everything okay?" he said, "Yes, everything is fine." But I could see he was hiding something. One night I said, "Peter, we need to talk. You are never home anymore. You don't talk to me. What is happening?" He looked tired, and he said, "Emma, please trust me. I am just very busy with work right now. It will get better soon." I said, "Are you sure that's all it is?" He looked into my eyes and said, "Yes, I promise." I wanted to believe him, but my heart was not sure. A week later, he came home very late again. It was past midnight, and I was awake waiting for him. He walked in, and I smelled perfume on his shirt. It was not my perfume. I felt cold inside, and I said, "Where were you?" He said, "I told you I was working late." I said, "You smell like perfume. Why?" He looked surprised and said, "I don't know. Maybe someone at the office was wearing perfume." I didn't believe him, but I was too scared to say more. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about it. My friend Sarah came over for coffee, and I told her everything. She said, "Emma, I don't want to worry you, but maybe he is seeing someone else." I said, "No, Peter would never do that. He loves me." But Sarah said, "Men change. You should check his phone." I didn't want to do it. Checking his phone felt wrong. But I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the perfume and the late nights and the unanswered calls. The next evening, Peter came home, and he was very tired. He said, "I need to sleep early tonight." He went to bed at 9 p.m. and fell asleep quickly. I sat in the living room, and I felt so anxious. I knew checking his phone was wrong, but I needed to know the truth. I walked quietly into the bedroom and found his phone on the table. My hands were shaking when I picked it up. I knew his password because we never kept secrets from each other. I opened his messages, and I saw a name I didn't recognize, Sophia. My heart started beating fast. I opened the conversation and I read the messages. Sophia, thank you for coming today. It means so much to us. Peter, don't worry. I will always be there for you. Sophia, you are so kind. I don't know what we would do without you. I scrolled up and read more messages. Sophia, thank you for staying with me again today. I had a great time with you. Peter, me too. I will see you tomorrow. Sophia, can you come in the evening? He misses you. Peter, of course. I will be there at 7 p.m. I felt like someone hit me in the chest. I couldn't breathe. Peter was seeing another woman. He was lying to me. All those late nights were not about work. They were about her. I looked at more messages and they went back months, 3 months. He had been seeing her for 3 months and I didn't know. Tears ran down my face and I felt so angry. I walked to the bedroom and turned on the lights. Peter woke up and looked confused. I threw the phone at him and screamed, "Who is Sophia?" He sat up quickly and said, "Emma, what are you doing?" I said, "Answer me. Who is she? How long have you been lying to me?" He looked at the phone and his face went white. He said, "Emma, please let me explain." I said, "Explain what?" "That you have been cheating on me? That you have been with another woman for months?" He stood up and said, "No, it's not what you think." But I didn't want to hear it. I was so hurt and so angry. I said, "Get out. Get out of this house right now." He said, "Emma, please listen to me. You don't understand." I screamed. "I understand perfectly. You are a liar and I want you out of my house." He tried to come closer, but I stepped back. I said, "Don't touch me. I never want to see you again." He looked so sad and he said, "Emma, please. Just let me explain." But I opened the bedroom door and said, "Get your things and leave." He stood there for a moment and then he packed a bag. He put some clothes and his shoes in the bag. His hands were shaking. When he walked to the door, he turned and said, "Emma, I love you. Please believe me." "This is not what it looks like," I said. "I don't believe anything you say anymore." He left and I closed the door. I locked it and fell to the floor. I cried and cried until I had no more tears left. The next few weeks were terrible. I called my job and said I was sick. I couldn't go to work because I couldn't stop crying. My friend Sarah came to stay with me. She brought food and held me when I cried. She said, "You did the right thing. He was cheating on you." I said, 8 years. We were married for 8 years. How could he do this to me? Peter tried to call me many times, but I didn't answer. He sent messages, but I deleted them without reading. He came to the house, but I didn't open the door. After 2 weeks, he stopped trying. I thought maybe he went back to Sophia. Maybe he was happy with her now. This thought made me cry even more. One day, I needed to go buy groceries. I hadn't left the house in weeks. I walked to the bus stop and waited for the bus. Then I saw her. A woman was sitting on the bench at the bus stop. She looked tired and sad. She was holding shopping bags. I didn't know why, but I looked at her and I felt something. Then I saw her phone screen light up. The name Peter appeared on the screen. My heart stopped. This was Sophia. This was the woman who destroyed my marriage. I walked over to her and said, "Are you Sophia?" She looked up surprised and said, "Yes. Do I know you?" I felt so angry and I said, I am Emma, Peter's wife. Her face changed and she looked scared. She stood up and said, "Oh, I didn't know." I said, "You didn't know? You have been seeing my husband for months and you didn't know he was married?" She said, "Please let me explain." But I was so angry I couldn't listen. I said, "How could you do this? How could you destroy someone's marriage? Don't you have any shame?" Sophia started crying and she said, "You don't understand. It's not what you think." I said, "I saw the messages. Thank you for staying with me. I had a great time with you. What else is there to understand?" She was crying harder now, and she said, "Please, Peter is a good man. He was only trying to help me." I said, "Help you? By lying to his wife? By spending every evening with you?" She sat down on the bench and cried into her hands. She said, "My husband died 2 years ago. He was Peter's best friend." I stopped and looked at her. She continued, "Before my husband died, he made Peter promise to take care of me and my son. My son is very sick. He has a heart problem and he needs expensive treatment." I felt confused and I said, "What?" Sophia wiped her tears and said, "Peter has been helping us. He has been paying for my son's medical treatment for the past 6 months. The treatment is very expensive and I have no money. Peter even sold his car to pay for the surgery." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I said, "But the messages." "You said you had a great time with him," she said, "because he plays with my son. My son loves Peter. Peter comes to visit us and brings toys and food. He reads stories to my son and makes him laugh. My son was so sad after his father died, and Peter brings him happiness." I felt like the ground was disappearing under my feet. I said, "Why didn't Peter tell me?" Sophia said, "He wanted to, but my husband made him promise to never tell anyone. My husband was very proud, and he didn't want people to know we needed help. Peter was trying to keep his promise." I sat down on the bench and I couldn't speak. Everything I thought was wrong. Peter wasn't cheating on me. He was helping his friend's family. He was being a good man, and I threw him out. I said, "Oh no. What have I done?" Sophia said, "Peter loves you so much. He talked about you all the time. He said you were the love of his life. He was so sad when you kicked him out, but he understood why you were angry." I started crying and I said, "I need to find him. I need to tell him I am sorry." I ran home and tried to call Peter. He didn't answer. I called again and again, but his phone was off. I sent him messages. "Peter, please answer. I am so sorry. Please come home. I need to talk to you." But he didn't reply. I went to his office, but his colleague said, "Peter hasn't been here for 3 days. He called in sick." I felt so worried. Where was he? I tried calling his friends, but no one knew where he was. I felt so scared and so guilty. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered, and a voice said, "Is this Emma?" I said, "Yes." The voice said, "This is City Hospital. Your husband, Peter, was in an accident. You need to come immediately." My whole body went cold. I said, "What? Is he okay?" The voice said, "Please come as soon as possible." I ran out of the house and took a taxi to the hospital. My heart was beating so fast and I felt sick. "Please let him be okay. Please." At the hospital, a doctor came to talk to me. He said, "Your husband was in a car accident 3 hours ago. He has internal bleeding and we did emergency surgery, but his condition is very serious." I said, "Can I see him?" He said, "Yes, but please be prepared. He is very weak." I walked into the room and saw Peter lying on the bed. He had tubes and machines connected to him. His face was pale and his eyes were closed. I sat beside him and held his hand. I said, "Peter, I am so sorry. I am so sorry." His eyes opened slowly and he looked at me. He tried to smile, but I could see he was in pain. I said, "I met Sophia. She told me everything. I know about your friend and his son. I know you were only trying to help. I am so sorry I didn't let you explain. I am so sorry I kicked you out." He squeezed my hand weakly and said, "It's okay. I understand why you were angry." I was crying, and I said, "No, it's not okay. I should have trusted you. I should have let you explain. You are a good man, and I treated you so badly." He said, "Emma, I love you. I have always loved you. I never wanted to hurt you." I said, "I love you too. Please forgive me. Please come home. We can start again." He smiled and said, "I forgive you." We held hands, and I felt a little bit of hope. Maybe everything would be okay. Maybe we could fix this. But that night, Peter's condition got worse. The doctors tried everything, but the internal bleeding wouldn't stop. At 3 a doctor came to me and said, "I am very sorry. We did everything we could." I ran to Peter's room, but he was already gone. The machines were quiet and his hand was cold. I fell to the floor and screamed. I couldn't believe it. Peter was dead. My husband was dead, and it was my fault. If I had trusted him, this wouldn't have happened. If I had let him explain, he wouldn't have left. If I had answered his calls, he wouldn't have been so distracted. Maybe that's why he had the accident. The next day, I went back to our house, and I felt so empty. Everything reminded me of Peter, his coffee cup, his jacket, his books. I went to his desk and found a letter with my name on it. My hands shook when I opened it. "My dearest Emma, if you are reading this, then something has happened to me. I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. You are the love of my life, and losing you was the hardest thing I ever experienced. I am sorry I didn't tell you about Sophia and her son. I made a promise to my best friend before he died, and I wanted to keep that promise. I know I should have told you, but I was afraid you would feel burdened. The treatment was so expensive, and I didn't want to worry you. I sold my car to pay for the boy's heart surgery. I worked extra hours to earn more money. Every evening I went to visit them because the boy was so lonely and scared. He lost his father and he needed someone. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted you to think I was unfaithful. You are the only woman I have ever loved. You are my everything. I hope someday you can forgive me for keeping this secret. I hope you know that everything I did was out of love. Love for my friend, love for his family, and most of all, love for you. Please take care of yourself. Please be happy. That is all I want for you. Forever yours, Peter." I read the letter 3 times, and I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Peter was perfect. He was loyal and kind and good, and I destroyed everything because I didn't trust him. That was 2 years ago, 2 years since Peter died. 2 years since I lost the love of my life. I visit his grave every week. I bring flowers and I sit there and talk to him. I tell him about my day. I tell him I am sorry. I tell him I love him. I also visit Sophia and her son every month. The boy is healthy now. The surgery worked and he is doing well. He talks about Peter a lot. He says, "Uncle Peter was the best. I miss him." I help Sophia with money and groceries. It's the least I can do. It's what Peter would have wanted, but nothing takes away the pain. Nothing takes away the regret. Every day I wake up and I think about what I did. I think about how I threw Peter out without listening to him. I think about how I ignored his calls. I think about how he died thinking I was angry at him. My friend Sarah says, "Emma, you need to forgive yourself. It was a misunderstanding." But how can I forgive myself? Peter is dead because of me. He was stressed and distracted because I threw him out. Maybe that's why he had the accident. Maybe if I had trusted him, he would still be alive. Sometimes I look at the sky and I whisper, "Peter, I am so sorry. I thought you were a liar. I thought you didn't love me anymore. But you were my true love. You were the best man I ever knew, and I was too blind to see it. I wear my wedding ring every day. I sleep on his side of the bed. I still make coffee for 2 every morning out of habit. Then I remember he is not here and I pour the second cup down the sink. People tell me to move on. They say I should date again. They say I am still young, but I don't want anyone else. I only want Peter, and he is gone. This is my punishment for not trusting the man I loved. This is what I deserve for breaking his heart. I have to live the rest of my life knowing that I destroyed the one good thing I had. Sometimes at night I dream that Peter is still alive. In my dreams, he comes home and says, "I'm home, Emma." And I run to him and hug him and say, "I am so sorry. Please forgive me." But then I wake up and he is not there. The bed is empty and cold, and I remember that he is gone forever. This was the story of mine. This is my regret. This is the price I pay every single day. If you love someone, trust them. Let them explain before you judge. Don't make the same mistake I made, because some mistakes you can never fix. I lost my true love because I was too quick to believe the worst, and now I have to live with that pain forever. Peter, if you can hear me, I want you to know that I love you. I will always love you, and I am so, so sorry.